Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining us for this virtual seminar. Because we have so much to share with you, we've divided this seminar into two sessions. This is part one. Your presenters this morning are me, Linda Fulmer. I'm the Executive Director of Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration, and
me, Jesse Herrera, founder and executive director of CoAct.
okay, let me tell you a little bit about our Grow Southeast initiative. This is a cohort between the Office of Commissioner Roy Charles Brooks, Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration, and CoAct, and the project is aimed at addressing food and economic inequities in East and Southeast Fort Worth. Our group interfaces directly with the community members on a recurring basis, and insights gained are coordinated and addressed through our steering committee and network of partners.
Absolutely. And the reason why we chose to work on this project is because many of the neighborhoods within Southeast Fort Worth lie within a identified USDA food desert. Nearly all the restaurants are fast food, and within the 34.8 square mile area, there are just 2 grocery stores and more than 100 convenience stores, selling mostly unhealthy snacks, tobacco, and alcohol. High poverty rates, lack of economic opportunities, and lack of transportation options fuel food and job insecurity.
And I'll add just a little personal note here. I moved to a neighborhood in East Fort Worth in 1980 called Southeast Meadowbrook. And when I moved there were about 8 supermarkets within 3 miles of my house. Today, only one of those supermarkets remains. So there's been a lot of changes in the community over the last few decades that has changed it from an area that was largely middle class and pretty stable economically to an area that has a disproportionate rate of poverty. And so back to Grow Southeast, what we do through this initiative is provide resources, training, and municipal navigation services to launch new community-based farms and hopefully help each one become a successful, self-sufficient business or organization. As each farm scales, they'll be able to add additional value in the jobs they create, the food they harvest, and the hope they bring for future entrepreneurs. As we launch our first cohort of growers, we are excited to see the possibilities this initiative will bring. So Jesse, who is CoAct?
Thank you. So CoACTA is a newly formed nonprofit. We actually got our incorporation right before COVID-19 hit, so it's been very interesting during these past 3 months. CoAct is a social impact organization that explores, discovers, and deploys community-centered solutions to address today's most pressing social challenges. Our approach builds on the benefits of human-centered design to develop collective approaches, advance new ideas, and create a strategic response to today's challenges. Our work shifts traditional patterns of power and resources to understand the nuances of today's challenges and benefit the communities most affected. It's a very fancy way of saying that we facilitate research to better understand the challenges so that we can then design better solutions. And kind of going back to what Linda mentioned prior, our framework is really built on interfacing with the communities that are most affected to make sure that they have a voice consistently throughout the project. And Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration and the work that y'all are doing?
Yes, well, we've been around since 1997, so we got started a little bit before COVID started. And what we were formed for was to convene hospitals, public health organizations, universities, and other community partners to collaborate on community health. You may not have heard of Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration, but if you look at the names of the organizations who are our members and community partners, I feel sure you're going to recognize those. Some of those organizations. It's my honor to serve as the executive director on a half-time contract. And when I say Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration, HTCC or we, I am intentionally including every one of the organizations listed on the screen because this is truly the power of collaboration.
Thank you, Linda. So the challenge that we've identified is food insecurity, and we're going to go in detail on what food insecurity is in part 2, but just to kind of hit a little bit of the highlights, food insecurity has been identified as a major social determinant of health in Southeast Fort Worth. However, food insecurity is more than just having access to food. It is the lack of economic opportunities, often perpetrated by many shared overlapping factors. Many of these factors, unfortunately, are the effects of very intentional and in some cases unintentional policies aimed at certain communities to deprive them of wealth and prosperity. We recognize that any solution in addressing food insecurity will require long-term solutions that foster local economic opportunities and empower the communities most affected with these intentional and unintentional policies. It is an understatement that food insecurity in its totality is a huge challenge. Any effort to address in full will require efforts on multiple fronts for an extended duration. So how are we working to address this? Grow Southeast is focused on creating community-centered solutions. Each of the farms are community-owned and operated, as mentioned before. We work collectively with each of the growers and have established a framework to ensure their voice is present throughout the implementation of this project. Linda, if you want to tell us a little bit more about our aim and
yeah, we really want to see each of these farms become a successful, self-sufficient enterprise, and also develop them in a way that they become a supporting network with one another. Our part of the work is to remove barriers and create solutions that can be facilitated without our continually needing to be involved. This will, for us, success is putting in place a system our community can operate and navigate easily without our assistance. This will ensure that the community is empowered to shape their future, hopefully opening other opportunities for innovation. As we detach from one aspect of this challenge, we can shift our focus to address other key needs as we go deeper into solving food insecurity. And now we'd like to introduce you to our community. We have 5 farms that are all located in East or Southeast Fort Worth. Each one has a different story and is at a different stage in developing from a hope and dream into a fully functioning, productive farm. All 5 farms, while they're different, they are united in a vision of being a catalyst for being part of the answer to food and economic insecurity in their community. So Jesse, you want to introduce us to Mr. Cleveland?
Absolutely. So I've had the pleasure of working with Cleveland now for roughly about 18 months. Cleveland, often referred to as Bo, is a lifelong gardener and a social activist and barber whose concerns for his community spurred him to create the nonprofit organization Friends of Cobb Park. Cleveland created his garden as a way to address the food desert in his community. He aims his efforts at connecting people, nature, and food by emphasizing the importance of healthy eating and careful land management. Through the farm, he wants to educate community members on how to start their own gardens and care for their health. Cleveland places a special focus on teaching local youth about gardening as both a way to inform them about their food and help them put their energy into doing something positive for their community. He holds informal classes at his gardens with students from local schools, and Cleveland hopes to open people's eyes within their community in ways that they can help towards solving them. As the garden evolves, he hopes people will release their negative energies and instead focus on getting to know each other over dirt and hard work. Progress on Cleveland's farm to full productivity was complicated by his health problems in 2019. Unfortunately, he's still dealing with some of these health challenges, but we hope as things get better and as he is able to receive the help that he needs, that the farm will provide a chance to grow and harvest its first crops later this year.
And my favorite part of his farm is the unique feature is the horses. He calls the horses the children. And he invites kids and other visitors to feed and brush the horses, as well as take them on walks and learn about how to care for them. This, Cleveland says, is a way to help relieve some of the stresses of daily life while also teaching kids valuable lessons about responsibility. Like I think we mentioned, the farm is located on land that Cleveland's father purchased in the 1960s, and it's not far from Lake Arlington. The section of this large property designated for growing is about a ½ acre. The farm also has a fully enclosed chicken house and run and a section with horse stalls.
Absolutely.
And just down the road from Cleveland is Nadias Farm. Her property has also been in her family for decades. A gardener for over 50 years, Ms. Nadia is a Fort Worth community member who has set out to address food insecurity while also educating the younger generation. After watching the way that food insecurity affected her community, she decided to take matters into her own hands and turn her small personal farm into something the whole community could benefit from. Using her expert gardening skills, Nadia is seeking to provide high-quality, locally grown fruits and vegetables for her community that will bolster both health and a greater appreciation for the earth. Her vision for her garden is ambitious and aimed at improving the lives of those around her. Nadia has divided her property into 3 sections, and this section here is called Phase 1, and this is a little over an acre. This Phase 1 property includes a stock tank and a small pond with fish. There's a deactivated well located in the Phase 2 area that's in the process of being repaired to use for irrigation. Now, in 2019, Nadia told us that she was having some issues with soil quality that was impeding her efforts to bring her land into productivity. She was doing a great job of growing weeds, but having difficulty getting food plants to grow. So through our network and collaboration, we were able to connect a class from TCU with Ms. Nadia, and they conducted extensive soil testing as a class project. The result of their work was to give Ms. Nadia the information about what amendments were needed to make her soil more productive. Recently, she was able to add 84 cubic yards of high-quality soil mix to her property and hopes that that will enable her to have her first harvests in 2020.
And what I might add to that, Ms. Linda, too, is, I mean, this is just really a showcase of the power of collaboration and really the benefit that the partners that you mentioned in our previous slides really bring to the table. I mean, the soil itself was actually, I believe, put together and secured through a partnership with Blue Zones Project and TCU. That was, you know, a really good win for the group that we found as we went through the project.
Yes, and by growing healthy foods and introducing locals to better ways of eating, Ms. Nadia hopes to increase community nutrition while also sharing the joy of eating and preparing healthy fruits and vegetables. Working in conjunction with the Friends of Cobb Park, Nadia aims to teach local youths about where food comes from, how it's produced, and the differences between plants, even going so far as to build an area of raised garden beds so small children with disabilities can participate. Nadia considers gardening to be a form of therapy and an opportunity to sit and get acquainted with nature. It encourages creativity and relieves stress, no matter how rugged or raw the earth may seem. And as you can tell from this slide here, Ms. Nadia also has an innate talent for creative reuse of materials. Jesse, you want to talk a little more about some of the reuse and recycling work that Nadia does?
Absolutely. So a lot of the things on the site are actually been made from salvage parts, salvage machinery. You can't tell in this slide, but in a later visit that we took, she actually used old PVC pipe to create raised beds. Some of them being the raised beds that Miss Linda was talking about earlier in the slide. There's another feature of this farm too that you can't see with this picture, but it's also just the immense collection of animals that Nadia has gathered. She has a couple of, they're not chickens, but I can't remember the name. She has a
Guinea fowl.
Guinea fowl. And then her most recent addition is, I believe her favorite, is a new goat named Milton. And if you do get the benefit of actually being able to tour the farm, you can hear them and sometimes see them wandering around. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And now on to Opal's farm.
Yes, opals. So I'm sure a few of you have heard of Miss Opal Lee. I'm sure a few of you have probably even had the pleasure of visiting Opal's farm. This is a dream realized, and as mentioned, named after the legendary community activist Opal Lee, who's a 92-year-old woman who had envisioned the urban farm as a place to provide farm fresh, nutritious food for residents of the city. Unity Unlimited, Opal's nonprofit organization, started working the 5-acre urban farm east of downtown to address the need to better access to healthy, fresh food and the role it plays in revitalizing the health of local neighborhoods. Her desire to help those less fortunate and find self-worth and purpose is an honest day's labor for an honest wage is surpassed only by her desire for people to have access to healthy produce and nutritious food. Everyone deserves to be fed and eat healthy food. Unfortunately, that's really the case in many of our neighborhoods. A lot of people don't know what it is to have fresh vegetables. The only choice they have is the convenience store or dollar store down the street, and that's usually a small selection of highly processed junk food void of nutrients, according to Gregg Gel, farm manager for Opal's farm. We will provide healthy options and the education to use them. And you can actually see Greg here in this wonderful picture taken by Blue Zones of one of the harvests that they're getting ready for for the Cowtown Farmers Market. Gregg Gel is a seasoned grower, and he got to start working on several garden projects for a local nonprofit. That led to several school garden projects for the Birdville Independent School District and eventually managing the Como Community Garden in West Fort Worth. Yearning to satisfy his desire to farm for a purpose, Gregg contacted Ms. Opal directly after learning about the idea of putting an urban farm in Inner Fort Worth. Their mutual commitment to addressing food and social injustices started an incredible relationship. Unity Unlimited has been granted use of these acres in Fort Worth by the Tarrant Regional Water District for the express purpose of creating an urban farm. Located just east of downtown, the farm sits on rich, fertile soil land near the Trinity River. Only 100% organic methods will be utilized with special care given to the soil conservation and the environment. Long term, Ms. Opal would like to see the farm create jobs, provide job training, and bring a spirit of entrepreneurship and self-reliance to the local community. Particularly, she wishes to see it be a place for incarcerated youth to have a second chance to get back on their feet. The farm will be a beacon of change for the community. And I'd also like to elaborate just a little bit about this as well. We talked about the Tarrant Regional Water District. This again is just kind of another showcase of that collaboration. And TCU was also a participating member in this project when it was first getting developed. The same class that we mentioned prior at Ms. Nadias Farms that did the soil testing also did soil testing on this farm prior to Ms. Opal acquiring it for the farm. So again, it's just really a showcase of just the power of collaboration and really the amount of resources that we have in our city that just go untapped. And this takes us to Greater Mount Tabor. And if you want to.
Yes, and on this slide, the gentleman on the left is the senior pastor at Greater Mount Tabor Christian Center, located in Southeast Fort Worth. Pastor Elvis Bowman is an advocate seeking to address local food disparities in his community. He's driven by a responsibility to care for those that are underserved and in need of healthy local food options. Using a fraction of the church acreage, he decided to create the community farm with the desire to bring people together while also increasing their quality of life. The farm will increase options for Southeast residents to get affordable and accessible healthy food. This is what the farm looked like when he decided to dedicate this acreage for the farm. As you can tell, it's not quite ready for growing things. This 3-acre piece of land is located on Berry Street behind the Family Dollar, and it was choked with an invasive species called privet. And this is what it's looked like until very recently. On June 8th, we were able to, through our efforts to locate a company, start the clearing process using this very interesting piece of machinery called a forestry mulcher. We've been working on getting to this point for about 18 months, working through the approval processes with the city. And it was very exciting to see this machine start chewing down that privet just like it was nothing. By the end of the week, all that remained was the mulch from the chewed up privet and about 120 small trees. The trees that were on the property were being killed by the privet because the privet is very invasive and aggressive. The remaining trees are primarily elms, sugar hackberries, and mesquite trees. And these are all located in what will be the future production area. And you know, it's kind of hard to grow food when there's a lot of shade. So these trees will also need to be removed and mulched. And there are hopes to prepare the first third of an acre of this 2-acre property for growing crops in the fall of 2020.
It's been a hell of an endeavor, to say the least. I mean, Greater Mount Tabor has really been a work since day one of starting this project. And we have spent a lot of those days just with coordinating, collaborating which we'll get into a lot more detail in part 2 of our presentation. This brings us to Mind Your Garden Urban Farm. I've actually come to know Steve Nunez and his wife Ursula quite well over the past year of just working with them and really having the honor to call them my friends. So Mind Your Garden Urban Farm is actually one of the only farms that's located on a true homestead. It's located in the Glencrest neighborhood in Southeast Fort Worth. And Glencrest is in a food desert where fresh and healthy food is scarce, and fast food restaurants and convenience stores and liquor stores are highly abundant. In 2015, Stephen attended a week-long agricultural training program, Arm to Farm, hosted by the National Center for Appropriate Technology. The workshop was designated for veterans interested in agriculture. The training was a life-altering experience for Mr. Stephen. He learned more about the food and health crisis in our country our country is currently experiencing, and how farmers are actively making a difference by providing local and healthy food for their communities. This workshop also introduced him to the therapeutic potential of farming, not just for veterans, but for all people. The event ignited a burning desire within him to return home to begin working on their farm. During the next few years, Stephen and Ursula continued their research and began experimenting with a small garden, planting fruit trees and developing the infrastructure throughout the property. In 2016, with a renewed purpose, Stephen decided to return to graduate school to pursue his degree in landscape architecture. Here, he was able to merge his passions with agriculture and design, utilizing his coursework to further his research for creating healthy, safe, and sustainable communities through farming and social engagement. In December of 2018, Stephen graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington with a Master of Landscape Architecture degree. His thesis, titled Addressing Issues Related to Food Deserts Through Empowerment, focused on researching the local food desert where he resides and ultimately developing a design proposal for the community garden in the Glencrest neighborhood of Fort Worth, Texas. For 2020, Stephen and Ursula are excited to implement their years of research and training into the farm. This year, they will be farming on approximately 1/4 acre with plans to expand to 1 acre by 2022. Their immediate goals are to use the next few seasons to learn and experiment with different crops and growing techniques. Long-term, their mission is to contribute to the development of healthy and vibrant communities through farming, social engagement, and self-sufficiency training and education. The lower part of the property has a pond, and water from the pond is pumped up to the storage tanks on these slides, located next to the market garden with a gasoline-powered pump. I might also add that the Nunez's are very community-centered. The thesis project that we mentioned in the previous slide has actually been utilized by Stephen recently with a neighboring YMCA facility to help them develop their own community garden. So actively, as Stephen is developing his own farm, he's been helping contribute to efforts to help other farmers get established. I think another thing that we failed to mention prior is that as a network, our farms work together. We're a community, we're neighbors. So Steve, from periodically time to time, will help some of the other farmers with logistical issues, maybe transporting equipment, transporting seed. Gregg Gel has also participated in helping the farmers with transporting equipment, which we'll get a little more into detail at the next slide. But the whole idea around this network of farmers isn't just, here they are. We work together. We're all part of this collaboration. And at the end, we're a family. And together, we're able to make the impact that we see. It's not easy, but it's been a joy seeing, these ideas come into fruition. So I'll just finish on that. It's been a good journey.
So this is the conclusion of part 1. And as this is a virtual seminar, we can't have a live question and answer, but we've got our contact information on here. One thing I'd also like to mention is that all of these farmers need volunteer help. So if you feel moved from this presentation to try and help, you can go to the website at the bottom of the Grow Southeast Fort Worth, wixit.com, and contact page, and let us know if you'd be interested in helping with the farms. In addition, you can contact either Jesse or me with any questions.
Absolutely. And just to add one more detail, Ms. Linda, because I love the work that we do. Volunteering is just one of the ways that you can participate. We also have opportunities within our steering committee. So if you feel moved with actually, getting your hands a little bit more dirty and helping with some of the key action items that it takes to get these farms in position, let us know. We'd love to have you join. We've always got room for additional hands and additional insights, and we look forward to working with you and seeing this thing through.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you at part 2.
Okay. Now, how do I stop